to Republican Kansas Secretary of State, Kris Kobach. Kris, very good to have you back. Thanks for coming.
Great to be with you.
How do you think this is all going to go, the back and forth on this? Democrats are saying no on the wall, but they don't want to see an opportunity where they can't get DACA done now. So do you think they will give on this?
I think they have to if they want to get anything on DACA, an amnesty for those 800,000 individuals. Look, the view of many Republicans, myself included, is, look, DACA is bad policy. You're legalizing 800,000 illegal aliens to compete against Americans in their 20s and 30s who they have a 9% unemployment rate, 19% unemployment. Underemployment. And so, you know, this is something there's got to be a lot in return for, not just the wall, but also the RAISE Act to stop chain migration and mandatory E-Verify to stop the surge of new illegals who will come in from getting jobs. So, you know, I think the parties are at opposite ends of the spectrum right now, and unless Democrats move, I don't think anything's going to happen.
Now, a lot of those Democrats have gone back to Republicans who are of that view, just what you espoused there, and said, well, if things are really hurting on the job front, we wouldn't be looking at a record low unemployment rate and jobs that go begging in many parts of the country, even with much higher hourly wages. So that just don't wash. What do you say?
Well, it's correct that overall, if you look at the overall picture, yeah, unemployment is pretty low. But among Americans in their 20s, the unemployment rate is actually pretty high, and so it's a spotty picture when you look at the demographics of the unemployed. And those, why in the world would we, legalize almost 1 million individuals to compete against our own kids as young adults, people in their 20s and 30s, who are trying to find those jobs? So, yeah, yes, it's true that unemployment is low nationally, but no, it's not true that Americans in that age group are struggling.
So what happens to those 800,000 if nothing gets done? Is the president saying, are you saying, go back?
Yeah, my answer would be return to one's home country, try to come in legally, like so many other millions of people around the world are trying to do.
But some of them were born in this country, right? Some of them might have actually been born, right? So, or very little when they got here.
No, if they were born in this country, they're U.S. citizens.
I guess my point is, if you come here as a toddler baby, they have no place to return.
Well, my point would be, look, if they were came as a toddler or a baby, that's a very tiny sliver of this DACA population, then they were obviously brought in by their parents, and the whole family should be returned to the country of origin. They came in as a family, they should return home as a family. There's nothing wrong with asking people who've broken our laws to simply return home. It's not a criminal penalty. It's just going back and doing it the right way if you're going to try to come to the United States.
In the meantime, the president has also shut down this voter fraud commission. He says that states simply are refusing to participate in it anyway. Now, that's a commission, among other things, that you lead. What does this mean right now?
Well, what it means is that the ball is handed off to Department of Homeland Security. It's more of a shift in strategy than an ending of the investigation. What was happening is we had almost a dozen lawsuits filed against the commission from Democrat organizations on the left, in addition, Democrats on Capitol Hill trying to stop the commission. And this partisan obstruction was making it really hard for the staff of the commission to actually do any work because of the litigation that they had. They're spending more time dealing with litigation than actually doing investigation. So now Department of Homeland Security will take over, and the investigation will continue in the executive branch of the government, not in a open bipartisan commission. So effectively, the Democrats lost their seat at the table by attacking the commission.
Do you think there was enough voter fraud going on to warrant this whole dust-up? Because have they found evidence of substantial voter fraud that would substantially make difference in districts and or races that you know about?
Absolutely. So the commission already, at its first meeting, brought forward 938 convictions. And, of course, convictions are just a small percentage of the total number of voter fraud cases since the year 2000. At the second meeting, we learned of 8,500 cases of double voting just in one election cycle among 21 states. And then, of course, the commission had not yet begun the big inquiry of how many aliens are on the voter rolls. In Kansas alone, we had an expert look at our voter rolls and the population of non-citizens, and he's estimated that up to 18,000 aliens may be on our voter rolls in Kansas. So there is a lot of evidence of voter fraud that the commission uncovered, and and there's much more still to be uncovered by the Department of Homeland Security. And remember, Neil, if you have a close election, as we often do, you may only need a handful of illegal votes to swing that election. So we're
there's
talking
no doubt.
about tens of thousands.
It seems at the time when the president was first proposing looking into this, he was looking at the popular vote gap between he and Hillary Clinton, intimating, and I think his thrust was it wouldn't have been that way if there wasn't so much rigged voting going on. Do you agree with that?
Well, it's hard to say, and we may never know, because to look at the 2016, first of all, the commission wasn't set up to answer that question.
I understand.
But part of the problem is, even if you wanted to, the question would be difficult to answer, because say you identify more than 1 million or more than 2 million illegal votes, you wouldn't know which way those votes went unless you had those people sworn before a court of law.
Why couldn't he just say, I lost the popular vote? He won the vote that counted, the electoral vote. You'd campaign very differently, after all, to win the popular vote if that was the goal, and just leave it at that.
Right. Well, I think that's a good point. But, the bottom line is voter fraud is a problem going forward. And I think all Americans, Republicans and Democrats, have an interest, I would hope, in making sure elections are fair. Look, I'm an elected office holder. If I win, I want to make sure I win fair and square. And if I lose, I certainly want to make sure that it was fair and square and that it wasn't a fraudulent outcome.
All right. Very good seeing you, Kris Kobach. Best of New Year's hopes for you. Thank you.